Hi friends, in this video we'll try to understand HTTP. So the reason why I included this is because HTTP is fundamental to understand web services. So what is HTTP? HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. From the full form, you can guess it is a protocol which is nothing but set of rules or steps used to transfer hypertext. So now what is hypertext? Hypertext is basically a document, also called as page, which consists of text and links to multiple other documents. Okay, so again the definition is it consists of text and hyperlinks. This hyperlinks nothing but refers to multiple other documents. Let's understand this using a basic example. Assume that we have computers in each continent. So we have 7 continents and each computer or every computer can communicate with each other. And if you draw a line between each computer, then what happens is a picture that comes out looks like a spider web, right? This you can call it as World Wide Web and usually called as web. And every computer communicating with each other over a network, and this network is nothing but internet. Okay, so a computer trying to send some hypertext to another machine over the internet, and this is how HTTP, web and internet are related. So I hope you got the basic understanding of all these three. Okay, so let's move on to our next topic. Before we move on, we have multiple other protocols, like we have FTP, which is nothing but file transfer protocol, where we are transferring file from one machine to another. We also have a protocol to send emails, okay, from and the protocol used is SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And here, if you're trying to transfer text, then it is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay, so let's continue with the basic terms that are used with HTTP, and you can see that the machine that is trying to send some information over the internet to another machine is called as client, and the machine that is responding back is called as server. Okay, so this is nothing but called as client server model, and the information that is being sent from the client is nothing but called as HTTP request, and the information being sent back from the server is called as HTTP response. So what is basically HTTP request and response? And technically is very important because we will be mostly working with request and response when we are looking at RESTful web services. So request and response consist of two main parts. Okay, it consists of header and body. Okay, so header, the request HTTP request consists of request header and request body. The client trying to send data goes within the request body, and if the client wants to send some information related to data, then that can be sent within the request header. So again, what is a request header? Request header is nothing but it consists of meta information of the data being sent within the request body. Now this request is then sent over the internet and then received at the server, and the server then processes this request and sends back an HTTP response. Now what this HTTP response consists of? It again consists of two main parts, that is response header and response body. And the response body consists of data again, and if there is some information related to data that can be passed within the response header. So I hope that is clear. And if you look at the second image, that where a client is trying to send a request to the server, and server responds back to the client. And again, a client here refers to a user and or a browser, because browser is something that is used to send the request, right? So the term client can be used for a user or the browser or the machine itself. Okay, and remember that a machine can act as both a client and a server, because if you see, a client sends a request to the server, and a server can again send the request to some other machine and get that response, and that response can be sent back to the original client. Okay, so that's how a machine can act both as a client as well as a server. So I hope that's clear. Let's move on to the next topic, and the next we have is HTTP verbs, also called as HTTP methods. So in previous example, we saw that the client is sending a request and the server is receiving the request and responding back with HTTP response. So how do the server knows what kind of action it needs to perform? And that can be decided using HTTP verbs. So what client does is, client sends an HTTP method along with the request, and depending on the method, the server tries to perform the action. Okay, so we have the most used verbs are get, post, put, patch, and delete. Okay, what get does is the server, if receives and checks, okay, it has HTTP get, then it reads the data and sends back the data in the response. So post is used to insert or create data at the server side, and we have put and patch to update the data at the server side. The difference is, put is used to update the complete data. Okay, if you have assume that you have a resource, okay, and you want to update the complete resource at the server side, then you use put. But if you want to update a part of the data, then you use patch. Okay, then we have delete. Delete is used to delete the data at the server side. So I hope you're clear with HTTP verbs, because, and again, this is very important topic, because this is what we are going to use in RESTful web services, the HTTP methods, because a RESTful web services uses HTTP verbs for all the actions that needs to be performed at the server side. So I hope that's clear. Let's move on to the next topic, that is, what is web service? Web service is a service provided as a response by the server over web to the client's request. Okay, so in our previous example where we saw that client is sending the request and the server is sending back the response, this is nothing but web service. Okay, so for example, now if you call a customer service where the service is provided over telephone for the item that you purchased, and the customer service provider tries to resolve your query over telephone. So there is nothing but telephonic service that they are providing, right? So in the same way, we have communication between client and server, and the service is provided between them is over web, and this is nothing but called as web service. So I hope you are clear with the basic definition of what web service is. So what did we learn in this video is the basic of HTTP and request and response. We also discussed about the two main parts of request and response, that is header and the body. Then we looked at the client server model and HTTP verbs. These are nothing but the HTTP methods which basically tells the server what kind of action it needs to perform at the server side. Okay, then we looked at web service and what is web service, the basic definition. So that's all for this video, and I will see you in the next session.